What'd be awesome is if there was sort of like a, maybe you've made this or maybe you see this, but like a comparison graph that have an extremely detailed analysis of what are the taxation implications for a American that was down there on a work visa. What's the overall population is the easy one, right? Like BA, Buenos Aires, Rio, Sao Paulo, maybe even like Lima. These are just large cities, so they're going to have some sort of technological hub there because just the sheer mass of people. But then it's like, what are the cities that hit above their weight class that are for some reason or another just sort of exploding uniquely in their small scale with excitement? Like, you mentioned Costa Rica, Tulum. I don't know if that would be a tech place, but the idea of a small place that has sort of something really special because the cohesiveness of that small city is what makes it feel magical. San Francisco in the early days kind of had this special feeling of like tech is it's just like this secret sauce that people would come there for. And Costa Rica gives me a little bit of that sense that people would go to Costa Rica to build a remote business and live that lifestyle. It's probably the quality of life, the safety, the tax implications, access to nature, maybe the physical infrastructure with hacker hubs or these sort of like houses. Are there other things that come to mind? You think that if I'm almost picturing if you're running a city, if you're a mayor of a city in Latin America and you want to take advantage of this globalization that's happening and economic opportunity becoming equally distributed, what should cities do to attract people?
That's a really good question. So I think you first have to understand how people are entering countries right now in order to then think about, okay, how can we get those people and attract more on tourist visas, on work visas, because those are very different conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So as it stands right now, most countries in Latin America and around the world give you, especially if you're from the US or Canada, any Western country, OECD country with a stronger passport, you have about 90 days on a tourist visa, meaning you have visa-free access to that country and you can enter without any issues. You get 90 days to build your business or work and have fun, play, whatever, for 90 days. And for most places, it's like that in Latin America. Then once you reach those 90 days, some places, some countries will allow you to extend that to 180 days, 183 days, Colombia included. So I know a lot about Colombia, having been based here for about 2 years. You have a 90-day visa, a tourist visa, and you can extend that to 180 days. So you can spend 6 months here without having to get any particular visa that you have to apply for, any difficult process. Very easy. Most countries have a structure where you can spend 90 days in that country on a tourist visa and then leave the country, come back for another 90 days, and your whole system resets. And then you can leave after those 90 days and come back. So those are called tourist runs, where you have to leave the country and you can come back after those 90 days. And that could be, different countries have different procedures where you have to come back within 24 hours if you want to come back, or 48 hours sometimes. But that option is open to, I believe that's the process, how it works in Argentina, in Costa Rica. I believe it's how it works in Panama as well. But when you start getting close to about 180 days is where tax implications start falling into place, right? In most countries around the world, if you spend 180 or 183 days, sometimes that's their limit, their threshold, in a country in any year, any calendar year, or sometimes in any 365-day period, so that could be June to June, if you spend 183 or 180 days in that country in that time, you become a tax resident, which can be a very dangerous spot for a lot of people because they don't realize that they have become a tax resident because they don't know these rules. So that means that you would be liable to pay taxes in that country, or at least file taxes, which is different than paying taxes, both in your home country as your tax residency especially as Americans, because we have worldwide taxation, and that country that you spent 180 days in. So for Americans, that can be a very tricky situation. For Canadians, Western Europeans, if you claim another tax residency as your tax residency, you can figure out ways to optimize for taxes and only pay taxes in one of those jurisdictions. But that's why I like to warn people about that 6-month limit or 6-month threshold, where you got to start thinking about, okay, how close am I to becoming a tax resident in this place and having to pay taxes in a jurisdiction that I didn't plan to pay taxes in. So you have to be very careful, very careful.
Yeah. Taxes are definitely a major consideration.